So last lesson we used vector art to make a logo. Today we're going to do it to create or recreate this bird. So when we think about vector art, it's just a series of lines or shapes to create an image, and that image is resizable and it doesn't lose image quality. So that's why it is called vector art. So we have this bird here, and there's a sketch of this bird that kind of break it up into segments of shapes. So these are all the shapes that we're going to have to make and use the fill color and order them in order to recreate this image to the best of our ability. And last time we used the polyline tool. You can still use that polyline tool, and that's just a series of straight lines. So when you do the polyline, no matter where it's going to make a straight line to wherever you click. We can also, on this one, use the curve tool. So as you click, if I start to round it, it's going to make this more of a curved edge, which might be beneficial for this piece because as we look through this, there are no solid edges. So we can just use, what I would recommend that you use is the curve tool, and then we'll recreate the body of this bird. So I'm going to zoom in either using this zoom button here or the hotkey Control Alt and plus. You want to get as close as possible so you can make as many points as possible. So I'll select my tool, which is the curve tool. I'm going to start from where this wing is and just slowly go around, clicking to make as many points as I can around the outside edge. And you'll see with the curve tool, as you move it, it actually affects where you click last time. So you do want to limit the size to as small as you can in between each point, because that'll make it so your piece is as accurate as possible. And if I was doing this not on the video recording, I would probably be doing even more clicks than I'm showing now. But for the sake of time, I'm going to start speeding through this. Remember, if you mess up on a point, you could always go back and edit it later. The more points, the easier it is to edit. So if you make a mistake, do not panic and press the undo button or escape or anything like that. When you get to this point, we're just doing the body here, so you can just go through, and that part's going to be hidden. So no matter what the shape is, it's going to be hidden by the leg, so it doesn't have to be too accurate. And same thing for here. All of this is going to be hidden. So as long as it doesn't affect the previous point, we can make our shape. And I'll choose a color to fill this. And for right now, I'm just going to choose something like that. And I'll make the border color transparent. Then I want to select this because this image is now blocking the other shapes I need to make. So my recommendation is once you get to this point, to right click and press order. And we're going to send this to the back. So now I can see my original image, and I'll just have to remember that I have already created the body. So then we can move on to our next shape. And our next shape, I'm going to go with the eye. So if you see an eye that is circular, you don't need to use the polyline tool or anything like that. If it's a shape that you recognize, you can use the shape tool. So this is a circle. So I'm going to make a circle the size of this eye. I'm just going to make a circle in the middle and adjust it as needed. So I'll line it up, bring it up to the top, to the right edge, until we have a circle that's relatively the same size. I'm going to fill that with white, and it has the border edge of black, so I'm going to leave that border edge the same. And I'll do the same thing for the next eye. And right now our eyes are in the opposite order than they should be, so we actually want to send this eye backwards. And you'll see that if I send it back, it's in the correct order that our original image is in. So if I bring this back to the front, I'm going to bring my original to the front, and you can see that those eyes are relatively the same. So now I move my eyes to the back, and I can continue where I left off. So far I've done the body, I have done the eyes, and I'm going to actually do the black pupils of the eyes. Zoom in to the black pupils. Once again, use the shape tool to select a circle. Adjust the circle using these anchor points. And fill it up using that fill color. And I'm going to order this and send it backward. Do the same thing for the next eye. Make the adjustments using the anchor points. Change the fill color. And order, send backwards. So I want to zoom out to see what other pieces I need to do. And now I'm left with the wing and the two legs and the feet. So I'm going to zoom in and I'll approach the wing first. There's two different ways you could approach this wing. So once again, this is a curved line, so I'm going to use my curved line tool. Starting at the point, we'll go through and recreate this wing. So now I have this wing, and if I was to look at the original, so I'll move this to the back just so I can see. This is called a gradient fill. So it's moving from a dark color to a lighter red. So when I actually fill this color up, I want to go to a gradient. So I'm going to select gradient, and I'm going to use a custom gradient. Actually, this one looks like it might be relatively good. No, I'll go to custom. So custom gradient. And I want one of my stops. So each of these squares is called a stop. And this is a linear gradient because it's moving on a straight line at a certain angle measurement. So I'm going to make one of my stops a black, and I'm going to change the other stop to this dark red. I'm going to move this window, so I'll check that out. And that is the wrong way, so the black color should be down here. So I'm going to go back to custom and edit. So I might just have to choose a new gradient fill. And I'm going to change this degree measurement. So the opposite of 90 is 270. So now we're starting from the bottom and going up to a lighter red. I'm going to double check that that color is semi-accurate. It's a little dark, so you might want to go back to fill color, go back to custom gradient, and we're going to change this to a little bit of a lighter red. That looks a little better. So now if we look at our wing, this wing looks like it has a shadow underneath it, and there's two ways to add a shadow. You can go to Format, Drop Shadow, and create a shadow, but I don't recommend doing it that way. I recommend just taking this wing and pressing Control C and Control V, making a copy and placing it underneath. And we're going to actually change the fill color of this to a solid black. I'm going to send it backwards so it looks like there's a second layer underneath it. So now we just created our own little shadow. So now these two I'm going to send to the back so I could just order them later and then go out of the way. And the hotkey to send backwards is Control down arrow. So if you ever clicked on something, you can press Control down and it sends it backwards. Now I'm left with the legs. So once again, these are kind of curved, so use the curve line tool. I'm going to zoom in so I can be as accurate as possible. These are darker red, so I'll choose something along these lines. Make it transparent. Do the same thing for the next leg. We can use the order tool to kind of crop this, so we just need to make a shape that is accurate for this bottom section. I'm going to actually make it bigger than it needs to be, just because that part's going to be hidden anyway. So now we have our two legs, and this leg's even darker than the last one. So I'm going to go to custom color and just make it a little darker. And even darker than that. So once again, I'll go to custom, just drag it a little further down. You want to experiment until you find something that
Keith, please call the office. Keith, call the office.
Something that looks about right. And I'm going to get rid of these. So order, send backward, order, send backward. And this one even has a slight gradient as well. So if you'd like to do the gradient there, you can. But that's not a requirement of this project. And these last legs, this is less of a curve line tool, but I think it should still work. So I'm going to click through these. To recreate the feet. Once again, since I'm going to order this myself, I can go a little bit bigger on that end. And I want to change that color to more of a mustard yellow. Just kind of experiment, look through something that looks kind of close. So that one's semi-close, then I'll go to custom. I'll just edit that a bit to make it maybe a little bit more orange. And that's not very good, but we'll keep it like that for now, just for the sake of time. Try to experiment with the colors to find something that is as accurate as possible. And when you're working with vectors or shape drawing like this, you do want to do the same colors at the same time. So if I'm doing something that is that mustard yellow, make sure the next shape that you draw is that same color because it will save you time. So this should autofill with that same color choice, which makes it so we don't have to recolor every single time. So now I'm going to zoom out, believe I made every shape that I have. And I'm going to order this original picture. So click on the original. And I'm going to send this all the way to the back. So I'm going to go to order, send to back. And the hotkey for that is Control, Shift, and the down arrow. And I could actually just get rid of this. So I could relook at the original image. So don't delete it, but I am going to move it to the right so I could look at my new image. And I want to change the order of some of this. So this wing, the shadow's on top, so I'm going to move this down. The Control down arrow. This leg is showing on top of the body, so once again, I'm going to press Control down. Or actually, I could just send that all the way to the back. So order, send to the back. This leg is on top of the red thigh, so I'm going to send that to the back as well. This one needs to be pushed behind the leg as well. So now we have our bird image, and at this point, try to adjust the colors as needed. Maybe even adjust some points. So like there's a little bump there, so maybe I want to bring that in a little bit. And until you feel like all the edges are smoothed out as much as possible. This does have a slight gradient fill, but there's no way that we can get that perfectly. So if you would like to just add some shading, one of the things you can do is, let's say this segment here is a little darker. So I can just create, I'm not going to do a good job on this. I just want to show you an example. Let's say that this random section here is a little darker. You can click on that random section and fill it just with a slightly darker version of that red. And when you make that slightly darker version of the red, you can also make it as a transparency. So it's just going to add some slight shading to your art piece. And you can experiment with that as well. So as you do the color, if we're using a custom color, you can change the transparency. So just to add a little layer of shading. So that's what we're going to be working on today, just creating this piece and aligning the colors and making the adjustments as needed to the best of our ability. And once you've reached a point, at least at this, you may stop, and we're going to be doing a second piece that is a character from a choice of 4 that I'm going to provide for you. So thank you.